آزادی بیان،
言论自由、
free speech.
Aryeh Neier, you've spent a life dedicated to the cause of free speech. Could you tell us why, in the simplest terms, you think it's so important?
I think it's so important because freedom of speech seems to me the key to all other rights. If one can speak out about any abuse one has suffered, one always has the possibility of gaining certain relief or certain redress from any other kind of abuse. And I think people all over the world prize the ability to express themselves freely because they know that that is the way that they can protect themselves against other kinds of abuses of their rights.
I think you've worked with the Open Society Institute all over the world. Is it, in your experience, genuinely a universal aspiration?
I think it is a universal aspiration. I know that there are many governments who describe or think of freedom of speech as a Western construct, and to an extent it is. But I think it's also the case that individual persons want to be able to say what they want to say, believe what they want to believe, associate with whom they want to associate, and they see freedom of speech, even if they don't articulate it as a general concept, as something that is immensely important to them.
Of course, it is true that it's in the West that the principles, norms, and legal principles have been most elaborated and institutionalized. We've attempted to formulate 10 basic principles, rules of thumb, norms for free speech. You've had a chance to look at them. What do you think of them?
I think they're very good. I think they cover a large part of the territory that should be embraced by principles of freedom of speech. There are one or two places where I think one might be more explicit. One of the issues that has concerned me is the problem of group defamation. People often defame whole groups of people. All Muslims, all homosexuals, all people of a particular race, and there is immense resentment by those who are members of the groups that are defamed in that fashion.
Do you think there should be an offense of group libel?
I don't think there should be an offense of group libel. I think that to the extent that there ought to be any protection against libel, it should be on the basis of the individual who is subject to a defamatory accusation that is untrue and does genuine harm to that individual. But group defamation, or the concept of group defamation, would exclude an immense amount of speech, and I think that it would constrain public debate to a very great extent. And so I don't think one can have a society where freedom of speech flourishes and where group defamation is prohibited.
Do you think that we should think more about other forms of redress, like, for example, the right of reply that you have in Germany?
Well, the right of reply can apply in fairly formal circumstances, such as when a newspaper publishes something that is defamatory about a particular individual. But it's very difficult if, say, a political figure engages in group defamation, and very often engages in it by using euphemisms that are universally understood but are not explicit. And how do you deal with a right of reply under those circumstances? So a right of reply is a very limited remedy.
What other remedy, then, if not going to law?
Well, I think one has to be able to respond. One has to be able to criticize those who engage in group defamation. But I don't think there's ultimately a solution for the problem of group defamation. I think one has to accept that this is one of the costs that we bear in allowing people to speak freely.
We have put open, diverse media in one of the principles on precisely those grounds, because then oppressed groups, vulnerable minorities, have the means to respond in open, diverse media. I know you've wrestled with the problem of hate speech, for example, in the case of Rwanda, where you had anything but open, diverse media. So do you think that is right, that open, diverse media are part of the basic structure needed to secure free speech?
Yes, open, diverse media play a very important role, and I think the best cure for bad speech is to promote more speech or greater access to opportunities for all to speak. I think that group defamation does the greatest harm when it is the only point of view that is being expressed. And Rwanda in 1994 or Serbia in the early 1990s are an example of periods in which the media that expressed group defamation had exclusive access to the large part of the population.
Perhaps your most celebrated free speech moment was the Skokie case. Tell us, for you, the single most memorable moment of that case.
Oh, I suppose the most memorable moment was going to Skokie and speaking in a synagogue in Skokie, and having an audience that was largely hostile to my point of view, but nevertheless willing to listen to me and willing to debate the issue. And it seemed to me that the fact that I could speak freely in Skokie in defense of the idea of freedom of speech meant that the idea prevailed, even if I wasn't persuasive to the largest part of the audience. Nevertheless, freedom of speech was being exemplified in the setting in which I was able to debate the issues.
And the audience included Holocaust survivors?
Yes. And a number of them, in asking questions, identified their own experiences.
We have a principle which says there shall be no taboos in the discussion and dissemination of knowledge. And this goes, amongst other things, to so-called memory laws, including the bans on Holocaust denial, which are quite widespread in Europe. And our view is that on fundamental free speech grounds, but also on grounds of historical knowledge, including no bans on Holocaust denial. What's your view on that?
I agree with that. I think that it's probably not a good idea to make a martyr of somebody like David Irving for engaging in Holocaust denial. I think one can debate David Irving. I think one can point out the flaws in his argument or in his recitation of the historical elements of Holocaust denial. And I think that's the appropriate way to take on a David Irving. I think it's always been the case that those who are denied the freedom to speak are able to exploit that in behalf of views of the sort propagated by somebody like him. There was even an episode in Germany in the 1930s, before the Nazis came to power, in which there were limits on freedom of speech, and the Nazis had a poster that showed Hitler with tape across his mouth saying, "Why of 2 billion persons in the world," that was approximately the number at that point, "is this man alone not allowed to speak?"